Hi, this is Dr. Eric, reminding you to check the link below to get your copy of the PDF that accompanies this Masterclass video. Thanks. Dr. Eric, True North Chiropractic, and today we're going to be talking about how to avoid getting injuries while you're working out at the gym. Here we go. Why would you go to the gym at all? Some people, they question the idea of going to the gym. They say it's a waste of my time. I don't feel like I need it. Don't I do enough at my working job? And I disagree for the most part with a lot of people because we typically have sedentary jobs. You might, do something once or twice a day that feels like you did some physical exertion, but for the most part, you're in a static position. You're sitting. Your blood flow and oxygenation to the tissues is not optimal. You're sitting down on your butt. So there's not a lot of activity going on there. Your posture tends to slouch forward, so we're not really working out in the way we think we are. So I really do feel that there is value when you go to the gym and when you work out. So what I always tell patients in my office is when you go to the gym, you're working towards becoming stronger than your working environment. So what does that mean? What that means is when you are working and you lift up a pallet of water, or if you're putting away office files all day long, or if you're a laborer and you're lifting up sheetrock or roofing tiles and things like that, you need to be stronger than your environment, because that's how you're going to stave off illness in the sense of injury. So what you want to do is you want to make sure that the muscle tissues that are going to be working the hardest have the most durability, and that's where going to the gym is effective, because it helps you to strengthen areas that may be overutilized to the point where they become weak. So if we can keep those pieces stronger, then you'll end up feeling better and doing better, and you'll have less injuries as you move forward throughout your working week, your working month, your season of work, all that good stuff. So, a lot of people too, it could be something as simple as bending over, picking up, your grandkids, or going out and gardening, or shoveling some snow, or raking the leaves. Those are activities, so we need to make you strong in the bending and twisting and reaching movements so that you don't have a back spasm shortly after you do one of those events. Another benefit of going to the gym is keeping your bones, keeping your muscles, and keeping your connective tissue nice and strong, nice and resilient. A lot of times, we see people, especially in our chiropractic office, they come in and we find that they have very weak tone in the muscle tissues of their lower back, and the muscle tissues in the neck, they tend to be tight, but there's not much strength there. So it's kind of like someone says, well, how can I be tight and not have strength? Isn't tightness, the muscle contracting? And while that is true, it's a different kind of tightness. We want to have strength, not just tightness. One of the other things that we see too is a lot of rotator cuff related issues. A lot of men and women, they're gardening, when you're also raking leaves and when you're shoveling snow, the rotator cuff is a muscle tissue that gets overtaxed. So unless you're working it out at the gym, you'll go and do a round of one of those activities I just mentioned, and you'll say, I have trouble lifting my arm. I can't wash my hair. I can't grab that dish from the top shelf anymore. And you wonder why, and it's because you overworked those tissues and they didn't have enough strength to begin with. And then lastly too, you want to make sure that you can avoid any unnecessary surgeries in the future. If you have a bad hip, if you had a bad knee, or if you have a bad shoulder, why not take the time now and strengthen those tissues so that when you're older, you have a lot more durability in those tissues, or heaven forbid, you do actually need the surgery itself. The surgeon can go in and say, wow, I can tell that you've been working out these muscle tissues. I have a lot of material to work with. We're going to have a successful surgery. As opposed to, they say, you know what, it's like paper thin in there. There's really not a whole lot I can do in terms of anchor points. We might get some results, but don't hang your hat on it. So, that's something else to think about as well. Exercises that should be avoided. This is our next question. What exercises should be avoided? I think a better question is, what can you do right now? A lot of people, they go to the gym and they feel either compelled to lift every single weight in the gym twice, and they have to be carried off, a stretcher because they worked out so hard, and they wear that as a badge of honor. And some people, they say, well, I can't do this because it's going to hurt my back, or this is going to hurt my shoulder. So we need to have you go through a range of motion, and we need to see, what can the tissues handle on their own. If you're going to do some sort of a back extension to strengthen the muscle tissues of the back, if I have you bend forward too far, we actually may create an injury. So you may not be able to go this far. We may only have to start you here before we can slowly kind of graduate you to those further levels. So that all starts with an evaluation. We don't just throw people into a gym or give them exercises at the gym willy-nilly, because form is important, and also weight is important too. We often think we can lift more than we can, and you might be able to do that for 1 rep or 2 reps, but ultimately you're going to find that the weight is going to become burdensome some, and you could potentially hurt yourself at the gym, which is the opposite of what we're trying to do here. So, we want you to have compliance when you go to the gym. Everybody kind of goes in with a loose plan when they go to the gym. But what I'd rather have you do is have something more formalized. If you're looking to strengthen the entire body, because it gives you a nice amount of variety, you want to be able to have like an upper body day, a lower body day, maybe something that involves some cardio or some core. That way you kind of feel like your fitness is well-rounded, as opposed to just, training shoulders, or chest, or something like that. Ultimately, the goal is always to work smart, not hard. Everybody can work hard, but sometimes that gets in our way and become a little bit stubborn. So let's have you work smart, not hard. Is lifting weights bad for my joints? And I would say it can be, but that's only if you have bad form. Anybody can do anything, with a heavy amount of weight, but your form is going to look sloppy, and ultimately that could lead to injury. Some people, they try to strain to lift too many weights at the gym. Again, touching upon lifting every single weight in the gym twice. That's not an option. That's not a thing. A lot of times, if we're getting deeper into our sets and our reps, we start to find that the form starts to get sacrificed. So in the very first set, you may have nice, perfect form. The shoulders are back, the head is up, maybe you're doing a bicep curl, full range of motion. And now all of a sudden, you're kind of pumping your body and you're kind of using other muscle tissues that are helping you kind of cheat the weight a little bit. So are we really getting results? And the answer is not really. We kind of lost it maybe a round or two ago. So sometimes it's better to cut the weight or actually reduce the weight if you're looking to complete the round of exercise. Again, a lot of times when people lift weights, they are lifting weights and they think they're doing a good job of the lifting, but that can also start to cause injuries as well. So if you're somebody who has a strain in their lower back and you say, well, I'll just push through my pain, that's not good either, because that's your body giving you an initial signal to say, hey, I need you to slow down because we're not stable anymore. And if you try to push through that pain, then that could be problematic as well. If it's an exercise that's therapeutic, that's designed to help you, and your therapist or your chiropractor has given you the green light to say, look, this exercise is going to make that area a little bit sore, but you will feel better, provided you stay within the parameters of the sets and the reps and the weight that we recommend, then you're not going to have a problem because you know what to expect. But if you're lifting and lifting and lifting and lifting and you run into a problem, then that's not good. You want to make sure that you're not straining any muscle tissues or straining any tendons. When you go to the gym and you have that gym soreness, that's actually not a bad thing. But if you start to have a tendon problem, those are those injuries that don't go away after a day or two. And those tissues, because they're more highly specialized than muscle tissue, they take a little bit longer to heal. So you really, really have to take your form when you go to the gym seriously. Next question. What are the most common gym injuries? It really depends on the training population. Typically in our office, in my office, we see shoulder issues, we see back issues, we see issues kind of at the base of the neck, the upper back shoulder area, but it's usually sports specific or training dependent. So if you're somebody who's in a CrossFit gym or someone who's in a boot camp class, you're going to develop overuse areas of certain spots, just because that's the nature of those workouts. If you're a basketball player and you're training for your sport, you're going to have a completely different training regimen than, say, a runner, or a sprinter or a swimmer. So you really need to know what kind of sport you're in and what kind of exercises are expected of you. A lot of football players, they do a lot of heavy weights. They're lifting a lot of these big heavy weights because they really have to be explosive off of the start line, as opposed to a long distance runner. They just need to shore up the muscle tissues that are going to give them the endurance and the durability over 26.2 if they're a longer distance runner, as opposed to a sprinter who's going to lift a little bit heavier, but they also have shorter distances, 1,000 meters, or less typically. When we look at our training specific population, injuries that are common for runners are typically a lower back issue, hip issues, and knee issues. And sometimes you get a little bit of plantar fascia going on. With our weightlifting or CrossFitting groups, we typically see lower back issues, and then we see some shoulder issues, some rotator cuff stuff, and then usually either neck at the base or neck up at the top. And then if you're somebody who participates in a boot camp style workout where you're either using light weights, moving from station to station, or you're using your own body weight, there's typically lower back issues, shoulder issues, and then neck either at the base or the neck, upper back, shoulder area. How do you develop strength? This is a great question. Our bones are designed to support our spine during movement, and they help to sustain our posture, such as activities like sitting. So what we want to do is we want to make sure that you take care of the bones first. That's foundation one of the strength. How do we do that? Well, you want to work on the muscle tissues and the ligaments. Those are the things that connect to the bones and allow us to move around in our environment. Typically what I'll have people do is some sort of resistance style training. So that's you against the load. It could be something as non-invasive as body weight, using your own body weight because you are lifting up against gravity. But if you're someone who's a little bit more trained or someone who requires a little bit more resistance, then we can start to increase some of the weight that we give you. If you're going to look for resistance training for a moderate to moderately heavy load, you're going to aim for something, roughly 4 sets for 6 to 8 repetitions. And if you're going to do some sort of endurance training, then you want to use a little bit lighter weight, but you're also going to go for a higher rep scheme. So that could be something like 3 to 4 sets of 10 to 12 repetitions. And again, it's not the end all be all. That's a little bit fluid. It just depends on what are your goals. Are we building endurance? Are we building strength? Because we have to match a protocol, or else you're going to kind of be in that middle zone where you're not quite happy with your results, but you're just good enough. In addition, what we want to do is we want to develop strength in areas where you are weak, and this all starts with an evaluation. So if you come into a chiropractic office, what you want to do is you want to go over a thorough explanation to your doctor and say, well, here's what I notice about my life, and the doctor's going to ask you some questions that is pertaining to your health, and you'll find that maybe you have bad hips, or you have weak hips, or you have weakness into the lower back, maybe your balance is poor, or maybe you have overdevelopment of one set of muscle tissues as opposed to the other. So you want to kind of balance out those tissues, and that could be job related or something like an injury that happened when you were younger. When we look at lower back issues in terms of building up strength, we typically refer to what's called as the posterior chain. So the way I explain a posterior chain is we have the anterior muscles, the anterior chain, and the posterior muscles are behind me. So if I were to stand up in front of you, all the muscles that you can see from the bottom of my feet all the way up to the top of my head, those are the anterior muscles. The posterior muscles are pretty much whatever you cannot see if you're looking at yourself in a mirror. So those include, but are not limited to, the calf muscles, the hamstrings, the glutes, the lower back muscles, the mid back muscles, the upper back muscles, the shoulder muscles, your rotator cuff muscles, the upper trapezius muscles, the middle and lower trapezius muscles as well. So those are all kind of pulling based exercises, and that's typically where you want to go with a resistance weight that is going to be slightly challenging but never overwhelming, and we graduate you into a workout program. People who tend to have bad neck issues, we want to strengthen the muscle tissues of the shoulders, kind of between the shoulder blades as well, to help pin them back, and obviously the rotator cuff muscles as well. The goal whenever you're working out, obviously, is to be consistent. A lot of people, they say my program didn't work for me, so I found something online and I tried that, and I gave that a week and it didn't get the results that I wanted, so I switched and I did something else. The problem that you're running into with those types of workouts is you're not allowing it enough time to kind of germinate. You wouldn't plant a seed in the ground and yell at it and say, grow, grow, grow. And a week later you say, oh, my watermelon didn't grow, so I'll just go and plant it somewhere else. No, you have to leave it, you have to water it, you have to nurture it, you have to kind of protect it and let it do its thing. Next question, differentiating gym soreness from developing pain. So this is also another great question. I always say for folks, you want to aim for the hurt so good type of pain, and you know what that is. You want to make sure that you're bringing blood flow into the muscle tissues. That's commonly what bodybuilders refer to as the pump, right? You kind of feel the muscle, you feel a little thicker when you leave the gym because blood flow is rushing into the area because you just activated those tissues, so the body's stimulated for muscle tissue growth. You don't want to be working out so hard that someone's got to carry you out in a wheelchair. That's going too far. I always say to folks, what you want to do is, your perceived effort is different from my perceived effort. So whenever you go to the gym, you want to aim for roughly a 7 to 8 out of 10 in terms of a physical exertion. So, that's, you can't be like lifting weights and kind of having a conversation to the person next to you, say, hey, how you doing? Oh, this is great. My little 5-pound weights, I'm doing wonderful. How are your kids? That's not working yet. That's maybe a 1 or a 2 on the scale. You want to make sure that you're focused on the tissues at hand. You're contracting the muscle tissues. You're letting them go. You're really focusing on why you're at the gym that day, because you want to be efficient and you never want to waste your time. After that 8 out of 10 exertion, you should likely feel good either later that day or into the following day, but you're going to feel that you've definitely worked those muscle tissues, whatever you happen to do that day. If you're going to train through your pain, what you want to do is that you want to kind of evaluate what is your day-to-day soreness. So for example, if you're someone who has lower back pain or neck pain and it's a constant 5 out of 10, it's just annoying enough but not enough to put you off on your day, and you go to the gym and you're training to support those muscle tissues, and that pain goes from a 5 and jumps to a 7. Okay, you worked out, right? The muscle tissues are activated. What you want to do is the next day you want to wake up and that pain should either recede back down to a 5 or maybe like drop down to maybe a 4.5. If you left the gym feeling a 7 and woke up the next day feeling like a 9, then there was something that you missed and you actually overworked those tissues, and that's why your body feels as it does. So always look for that sweet spot of feeling a little bit more sore after your gym, but then you should feel the following day that everything resets. If not, look at your training or perhaps add a little bit more recovery, such as ice. So in summary, what do we want to do? The goal is to keep you strong for life. We want to make sure that you are stronger than your working environment, whether you are a physical laborer, whether you are someone who works at a desk, someone who's on their feet all day, someone who's in a car all day, all those different things. You want to make sure that you are strong enough for your working environment. If you're not, you're going to start to develop problems that begin as occasional problems, and then they start to become more persistent. And then that's typically when you come to a chiropractic office and we look at you and say, here's what we need you to do to become stronger for yourself. Your training will change as you get older. A lot of times runners, including myself, I was a runner for many, many years. I enjoy it thoroughly and still do, but I have changed my training protocol to adopt a little bit more in terms of cycling. Not that I have bad knees, but I find that I just enjoy a little bit of variety as opposed to just a straight on running. Plus, I like to go a little bit fast. Heavy weight training, right? Maybe you were working out with heavy barbells, you're using free weights, dumbbells, kettlebells, you're doing pull-ups from a chin-up bar, things like that. As you get older, the muscle tissues in the joints, they don't operate the same way as they once did. So maybe now you are using machine assists. Arnold Schwarzenegger, a lot of people have heard of him, kind of a big guy in the fitness world. He was a very, very big proponent on free weights, but as he's approaching, into his middle 70s, you now start to see him lifting machine-based weights because it's healthy for his joints and his body, just because he put his body through an incredible regimen of weight training. But now he's still able to maintain his relative strength for his age group, but he's modified his training protocol to allow him to continue to lift weights and remain healthy. Another thing when we look at our workout summary is you want to make sure that you're not training the same body part on day after day after day. We see runners do this all the time, and that's why they tend to get broken down. They just run and run and run and run and run, but there's no strength component to it to strengthen that posterior chain. Same thing with bodybuilders. The reason they look the way they do is because they have a different day that's dedicated to a different body part, and you should treat your injuries the same way as well. So if you're rehabbing a shoulder protocol, maybe you do it every other day, right? Or if it's a lower back protocol, same thing. Or if you're working through multiple issues, maybe alternate those days. Upper body day, lower body day, maybe some core, maybe some cardio, just to give yourself a little bit of variety. Our call to action. So if you are somebody that is having trouble with their gym routine or is constantly getting hurt, they're trying to chase maybe a PR, a personal record, and they say, every time I get close to that lift, I always hurt my back and it sets me back a month and I get really depressed. That's someone that you want to give my card to and my information. My information is found on our website. You can also give us a call at the office. Happy to have a consult with you and discuss what's going on so that we can help you kind of navigate those murky waters, because likely you're doing everything perfect. You're just maybe missing one or two small things that is really going to make a difference between being good to being great. Okay.